See if I get my mic right. There we go. Welcome to the January 2026 open meeting of the Federal Communications Commission. Welcome back to everybody that has dug yourself out of snow. I don't know about many of you, but I had to try to clear my driveway, and I'm feeling still sore a number of days later, but I'm glad to be dug out and back to business as usual here. So before the meeting starts, will you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, now that you are also dug out, will you please introduce this month's agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you and good morning, Commissioners. For today's meeting, you will hear 4 items for your consideration. First, you will consider a 4th report in order and third further notice of proposed rulemaking on expanding unlicensed operations in the 6 gigahertz band. Second, you will consider a report in order on establishing transparency in foreign adversary control. Third, you will consider a report in order on promoting clarity by codifying and simplifying foreign ownership rules. Fourth, you will consider a notice of proposed rulemaking that would seek comment on enhancements to IP-based telecommunications relay services. This is your agenda for today. Today's first item is titled Expanding Unlicensed Operations in the 6 gigahertz band and will be presented by the Office of Engineering and Technology. Andrew Hendrickson, Chief of the Office, will give the introduction.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Chief Hendrickson, please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I am pleased to introduce a 4th report in order and 3rd further notice of proposed rulemaking that will create new opportunities for unlicensed use of what is commonly known as the 6 gigahertz band. Joining me at the table is Nicholas Oros, Deputy Chief of the Policy and Rules Division. Nick will present the item. Nick, it's you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Since 2020, the Commission has been expanding unlicensed use of the 6 gigahertz band to support the growing demand for wireless connectivity, such as Wi-Fi. Unlicensed devices share the 6 gigahertz band with licensed incumbent services, such as point-to-point microwave links, satellite, and the broadcast auxiliary service. Today's item permits a new type of unlicensed device to operate in the band, geofenced variable power devices. The FCC previously allowed the use of 3 classes of unlicensed devices in the 6 gigahertz band. Standard power devices, which operate under the control of an automated frequency coordination system, low power indoor devices, or LPI, which operate at lower power than standard power devices, but they are restricted to indoor use only, and very low power devices, or VLP, which operate at even lower power than the LPI devices, but they may operate anywhere without any restrictions. The new geofenced variable power device class will fill an important gap between the VLP and LPI devices. These devices will operate at significantly higher power than the VLP devices, but without the restriction to indoor operation of the LPI. These devices will be prohibited from operating in exclusion zones on certain frequencies to prevent them from causing harmful interference to point-to-point microwave links. The exclusion zones will be calculated by a geofencing system using information in the Commission's licensing database. Geofenced variable power devices will be limited to 2 portions of the 6 gigahertz band, totaling 850 megahertz of spectrum. The higher power of geofenced variable power devices will enable enhancements to augmented reality, virtual reality wearable devices, high data rate mobile hotspots, and other unlicensed use cases. The further notice proposes additional operational flexibility for the 6 gigahertz band unlicensed devices, including operating low-power indoor devices on cruise ships and permitting automated frequency coordination systems to take into account building loss when determining frequency availability and power levels. The Office of Engineering Technology recommends adoption of this item and requests editorial privileges to make technical and conforming edits. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll now hear comments from the bench, starting with Commissioner Gomez.
Thank you. Back in 2020, the FCC made an important decision to support wireless innovation and meet consumer demand. It allowed unlicensed use in the 6 gigahertz band. And as you just heard, we've had an evolution of devices and services that we've allowed in the band. But the bands continue to become increasingly crowded. So to allow for wireless innovation to continue to reach consumers while protecting incumbents of the 6 gigahertz band, we permitted these 2 new devices to operate in the band, as you just heard. Since then, the popularity and types of connected devices has only continued to grow. So in 2023, we authorized a new class of unlicensed devices to operate in the 6 gigahertz band, which were the very low power devices. They were authorized to operate first only in a portion of the band and later in 2024 throughout the entire band. Those decisions propelled more innovation in wearable and virtual reality devices. But innovation inspires innovation. There are even more devices today that will need to rely on unlicensed spectrum to connect consumers. And that is why today we are authorizing a new type of unlicensed device to operate in the 6 gigahertz band, the geofenced variable power device. This new class of devices will operate at higher power, but will work with a geofencing system to minimize the possibility of harmful interference and to stay out of exclusion zones. Once again, demonstrating that good spectrum policy can choose both innovation and protecting licensed incumbents. The continued support for unlicensed innovation in the 6 gigahertz band has been long in the making. Our decision today sends a message beyond our borders about the United States' commitment to next generation Wi-Fi operations, and we hope to set an example for the world. So finally, I want to thank the Office of Engineering and Technology for their hard work over the years on this important item.
Thank you. Now hear from Commissioner Trusty.
Thanks. United States leadership in spectrum innovation requires a balanced spectrum policy that recognizes the importance of both licensed and unlicensed operations. I'm pleased to support today's 4th report in order because it will enhance the value of the 6 gigahertz band and reinforce U.S. leadership in next-generation Wi-Fi technologies. Unlicensed innovation is rapidly expanding into applications that demand low latency, high throughput, and reliable indoor connectivity. Among other things, these applications could include augmented reality glasses supporting remote collaboration, immersive tools, training tools for first responders and industrial workers, or wearable devices that monitor health, fitness, and environmental conditions in real time. By authorizing geofence variable power, or GVP devices, the Commission enables these technologies to scale and meet growing consumer demand while maintaining appropriate protections for incumbent users. Importantly, while the 6 gigahertz band offers significant promise for wearable and other emerging use cases, this item appropriately takes a technology-neutral approach that leaves room for future innovations we cannot yet predict. The further notice of proposed rulemaking builds on this progress by proposing additional opportunities for unlicensed use in the 6 gigahertz band. Together, the report and order and FMPRM move us closer to our shared goal of universal connectivity, ensuring that advanced wireless capabilities are able to support innovation and connect Americans wherever they live, work, or travel. I thank the Office of Engineering and Technology for your great work on this item.
Thank you, Commissioners. Earlier this month, I had the chance to get back out to the Consumer Electronics Show along with my colleagues out in Las Vegas. During the show, I eventually found a chance to duck out of the panels and get down to the show floor where the real action is. I got to admire all of the latest innovations, and it is always fun to get to see what's coming next. Perhaps one of the most consequential innovations at CES wasn't something entirely new, but a supercharged version of something that consumers already love, the next generation of Wi-Fi. You see, at this year's show, America's tech industry debuted Wi-Fi 8 routers and chips for launch as soon as this year. This next generation of Wi-Fi will offer blazing fast speeds, massive capacity, and better power efficiency. This is a big deal. After all, we've seen so much innovation take place across all of our spectrum bands, both licensed and unlicensed alike. And at CES in particular, you could see these unlicensed spectrum bands powering everything from AI-enabled wearables to consumer drones, American-made drones, of course. Now, you might not have seen one thing at CES, which is the FCC's own dedicated team of engineers, but they deserve a shout out here because they're the ones that have been working tirelessly to bring more unlicensed spectrum to the marketplace and to allow innovators to supercharge existing operations in those unlicensed bands. Now, if you go back to 2020, during the first Trump administration, Chairman Pai recognized that we faced a shortage of unlicensed spectrum as U.S. businesses were busy building a new generation of consumer devices. So the FCC went big and opened up 1,200 megahertz in the 6 gigahertz band for unlicensed use. Consumers across the country now benefit from a better Wi-Fi experience as a result. Today, we build on that foundation and offer more flexibility to support future innovations in the 6 gigahertz band. Everything from compelling AR, VR applications to short-range hotspots and much more. Our consumers, our economy, and our innovators will all be better off for today's decision. More broadly, President Trump has been clear that the administration is working successfully to unleash America's technology leadership. And today's decision marks another win in that effort. For all of their hard work on the item, I'd like to thank the team, including Chief Hendrickson, Nicholas Oros, Michael Ha, Baman Badapur, Aol Wilkinsell, Anika Tassin, and Matthew Miller in the Office of Engineering and Technology, plus Keith McCrickard from OGC, as well as Alex Yankelevich, Cher Lee, and Patrick Sun from the Office of Economics and Analytics. With that, we will proceed to a vote on the item. Commissioner Gomez?
Approve.
Commissioner Trusty?
Approve.
The chair votes to approve as well. The item is adopted with editorial privileges as requested. And Madam Secretary, will you please announce the next item on today's agenda?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, item 2 on your agenda is titled Establishing Transparency in Foreign Adversary Control and will be presented by the Wireline Competition Bureau. Joseph Calichon, Bureau Chief, will give the introduction.
Chief, that the smattering of 2 people applause is a tough thing to follow. It's big shoes. But I think you're up for the task. So when you are ready, please proceed.
We'll see. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The Wireline Competition Bureau is pleased to present for your consideration a report and order that would take an important step in protecting our communications networks against foreign adversary threats by adopting new disclosure requirements for holders of licenses and authorizations. I'd like to thank the Wireline Competition Bureau team for their work on this item, as well as our colleagues throughout the Commission. This truly was a cross-agency effort, and I'd like to particularly call out our collaboration through the Commission's Council on National Security for this item. Seated at the table with me are Allison Baker, Associate Chief of the Wireline Competition Bureau, Jody May, Chief of the Bureau's Competition Policy Division, Tanner Hinkle, Economist in the Office of Economics and Analytics Industry Analysis Division, and Chris Smenk, Attorney Advisor in the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau's Operations and Emergency Management Division, as well as Mason Sheffa, Attorney Advisor in the Bureau's Competition Policy Division, who will now present the item. Mason.
Thank you, Joseph, and good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The United States government and the FCC have long recognized that foreign adversaries are engaged in a widespread and coordinated effort to exploit, attack, and otherwise compromise the integrity of United States communications networks, including through proxy entities. This rule enhances transparency and visibility into entities holding licenses and authorizations issued by the Commission and their relationships to foreign adversaries. The report and order, if adopted, would first define the scope of the licenses, leases, authorizations, permits, grants, and other approvals subject to new attestation and disclosure requirements by placing them into 3 schedules of licenses, A, B, and C, based on a variety of factors, including national security risk of foreign adversary control. Second, the report and order would require holders of Schedule A covered authorizations to attest whether they are or are not subject to foreign adversary control, require holders of Schedule B covered authorizations that are subject to foreign adversary control to attest thereof, and exempt holders of Schedule C covered authorizations from filing foreign adversary control attestations. Third, the report and order would require all covered authorization holders attesting to foreign adversary control to disclose additional information about such control, including all 5% or greater interests and the nature of the foreign adversary control to which the regulatee is subject. Fourth, the report and order would establish a single consolidated reporting system wherein all regulatees with a reporting obligation would make their attestations and submit any further required information. Fifth, the report and order would set a filing deadline for most regulatees of 60 days after the adoption of the public notice announcing the launch of the consolidated reporting system, provide an extended period of 120 days for small entities, and establish a variety of ongoing reporting requirements. The Bureau recommends adoption of this item and requests editorial privileges. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, and I appreciate the telecom-related pin that you have there. So appreciate that. I gotta get one of my own. To upgrade some of the pins that I've got. We'll now hear comments from the bench, starting with Commissioner Gomez.
Thank you. Yeah, I got that. National security and communications are inextricably linked in today's digital environment, where connectivity underpins every part of our lives. The FCC has a responsibility to ensure that entities operating in the U.S. communications ecosystem provide secure, reliable communication services. So today's item supports this important goal by gathering more information on entities under foreign adversary control that have the potential to undermine national security and public trust. So thank you to the Chairman's office for working with me on edits to this item, and thank you to the Wireline Competition Bureau and the whole team of other bureaus that contributed to this item.
Thank you. Commissioner Trusty.
Thank you. Communications networks are strategic terrain. Foreign adversaries increasingly view communications technologies as tools of geopolitical influence. The United States must continue to anticipate these risks and respond with foresight and resolve. The FCC has an important role to play in the government-wide effort to address foreign threats. One way the Commission fulfills that responsibility is by identifying and assessing potential national security risks posed by vendors, technologies, and operators seeking to participate in the United States communication networks. Information is essential to that mission. Today's item adopts a carefully calibrated approach to ensure the FCC has the critical ownership and control information it needs to evaluate potential risks from foreign adversaries as it carries out its authorization and licensing responsibilities. Just as importantly, the Commission must be prepared to act on that information. This order establishes an agency-wide directive for staff to monitor these filings, analyze ownership information submitted, and, where appropriate, pursue enforcement action. These actions complement past and ongoing government-wide efforts to address national security threats. The rules build on the Department of Commerce's work to identify foreign adversaries, as well as the Commission's own long-standing efforts to protect U.S. communication networks from foreign threat actors. Safeguarding America's communications networks is not a one-time exercise. Indeed, it is a continuous effort that demands vigilance from all stakeholders. I look forward to continuing to work with my colleagues, our federal partners, Congress, and industry leaders to help ensure the security and integrity of our communications networks. I thank the Wireline Competition Bureau and the many bureaus and offices across the agency that contributed to this item, and I appreciate the significant work that lies ahead as the Commission makes full and effective use of the information these rules will generate. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Almost 4 years ago now, we first started talking about requiring the FCC to have every entity with an FCC license or authorization that's owned by or controlled by a foreign adversary government disclose that connection. Fast forward to today, and the Commission now votes to complete a rulemaking that does exactly that. This decision also builds on the specific and concrete steps the FCC has been taking to promote our country's national security. Indeed, from the day I stepped into this particular position at the agency, we've made national security a top priority, establishing a Council on National Security to coordinate actions just like this all across the Commission's offices and bureaus. In fact, today's item includes sections from 10 bureaus and offices reflecting this comprehensive Commission-wide approach. Foreign adversaries have made it clear their intent to probe and exploit vulnerabilities across our communications ecosystem. We've seen this through cyber attacks like Salt Typhoon. We've seen it in the equipment pipeline, where foreign adversary-controlled labs could attempt to influence the testing and approval of devices bound for the U.S. market. We've seen it in the online marketplace, where millions of prohibited devices linked to foreign adversaries were continuing to be sold to American consumers. And we've seen it at the carrier level, where entities with concerning ties to foreign governments have sought to operate in the U.S. despite clear national security risks. In all these areas, the FCC has taken action. We do so again today. This decision establishes a uniform system for identifying foreign adversary control across all FCC licensees and authorization holders. It sets up a clear, risk-based reporting structure that requires entities to attest to whether they are owned by, controlled by, or subject to the jurisdiction of a foreign adversary. This approach also tracks the broader and bipartisan FACT Act led by Senator Deb Fischer, and I appreciate the leadership behind that legislation. This single, consolidated reporting system will give us and our national security partners the visibility needed to spot foreign adversary control before it's exploited. Additionally, this action will fill gaps in our information collection and ensure that we have consistent visibility across all entities that come before the agency. This has truly been an agency-wide effort. So for all their work on today's item, I'd like to thank Chief Calishone, Allison Baker, Jody May, Mason Sheffa, Shabir Hamid from the Wireline Bureau, Chris Smink from the Public Safety Bureau, Michael Scott from the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, Jamie McCoy from the Enforcement Bureau, Jamie Coleman from OET, Doug Klein from OGC, Gabrielle Kim from the Office of International Affairs, Brendan Murray from the Media Bureau, Carolyn Mahoney from the Space Bureau, Thomas Reed and Roger Noel from the Wireless Bureau as well. So thanks again to the team for that. We'll now proceed to a vote on the item, starting with Commissioner Gomez.
Approve.
Commissioner Trustee?
Approve.
The chair votes to approve as well. The item is adopted with editorial privileges as requested. There we go. I fear we've started a new tradition that we're not going to be able to live up to. Madam Secretary, please announce the next item on today's agenda.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, item 3 on your agenda is titled Promoting Clarity by Codifying and Simplifying Foreign Ownership Rules, and will be presented by the Media Bureau and the Office of International Affairs. Aaron Boone, Chief of the Media Bureau, will give the introduction.
Chief Boone, when you are ready.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Before you is a report and order for the Commission's Section 310B ownership rules. This report and order was a joint effort by the staff of the Media Bureau and the Office of International Affairs. With me from the Media Bureau are Ben Arden, Special Counsel, and Emily Harrison, Attorney Advisor in the Video Division, and the lead attorney on this effort for the Media Bureau. With me today at the table from the Office of International Affairs are Tom Sullivan, Chief, Denise Coca, Division Chief of the Telecommunications and Analysis Division, and Farah Musinakalor, did I get it? attorney advisor in the division and the lead attorney on this effort for OIA. Emily will present the item.
Thanks, Erin. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The Media Bureau and the Office of International Affairs are pleased to present the first report in order since 2016 addressing foreign ownership issues related to Section 310B of the Act. Over the past decade, we have been asked to approve increasingly complex foreign ownership structures. We have observed that when petitioners failed to provide us with complete ownership information, they have encountered avoidable processing delays. This report and order facilitates the Commission's public interest analysis and codifies current practices to make it easier for entities to understand and navigate our foreign ownership rules, avoiding inconsistent outcomes and reducing costs for petitioners. The report and order clarifies definitions and concepts in our foreign ownership rules, such as the definition of a controlling U.S. parent, which is an important term in calculating an entity's foreign interests. Other clarifications include disclosure requirements regarding trusts and trustees, U.S. residency requirements, and the treatment of deemed voting interests and advance approval of certain limited liability companies and limited partners. The report and order also clarifies requirements for petitioners seeking to correct situations where they are inadvertently out of compliance with foreign ownership rules, including extending remedial procedures to privately held entities for the first time. The report and order also codifies the Commission's existing procedures for filing amendments to pending petitions. With regard to broadcast licensees only, the report and order directs the Media Bureau to issue processing guidelines detailing how the Commission will process pending broadcast applications during the pendency of a remedial Section 310B petition, and clarifies other considerations related to processing non-commercial educational and low-power FM station applications. We recommend adoption of the report and order and request editorial privileges for technical and conforming edits. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll now turn to comments from the bench, starting with Commissioner Gomez.
I'm glad to see us take up this item, which reflects a shared commitment across administrations to bring greater clarity and consistency to our foreign ownership rules. Through this action, the FCC codifies long-standing review practices, streamlines our processes, and establishes clear safeguards that protect national security while continuing to support responsible foreign investment. I thank the chairman for his focus on this bipartisan issue, and I also thank the Office of International Affairs and the Media Bureau for their work on this item.
Thank you. Commissioner Trustee.
Thank you. Recognizing the economic benefits of foreign investment in U.S. companies while remaining vigilant against foreign threat actors is key to protecting both our economic and national security. For more than a decade, the Commission, supported by its dedicated and expert staff, has developed and applied policies to safeguard the public interest by ensuring that foreign entities with ownership in broadcast, common carrier, and aeronautical radio licensees comply with the Communications Act. In furtherance of transparency, consistency, and efficiency, this item takes the important step of codifying the Commission's long-standing policies and practices pursuant to our statutory obligations. Doing so provides greater clarity to stakeholders while strengthening the integrity of the foreign ownership review process. This report and order strikes the proper balance, encouraging investment in the United States while advancing the America First investment policy of protecting our country from new and consistently evolving national security threats. The item builds on the Commission's ongoing efforts to streamline regulatory processes, enhance oversight, and prevent bad actors from gaining access to our communications networks. I particularly support the increased regulatory certainty for industry, the simplification of the petition process, and the reduced burdens on both stakeholders and Commission staff during the ownership review process. I thank the Media Bureau and the Office of International Affairs for your great work on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Last year, the Commission launched its delete proceeding. Since then, we've successfully identified tens of thousands of words of regulation for elimination ones that no longer serve the public interest, either because they regulate obsolete technology, are no longer used at all in practice, or are otherwise outdated. This effort to slash costly regulations is necessary and vital, but the FCC also has a significant set of regulatory requirements that are off the books and many more regulatory provisions that are simply unclear. Having those uncodified and unclear rules adds needless costs, makes it harder for entities to understand and navigate our requirements, and risks inconsistent outcomes. One case in point is the FCC's set of foreign ownership regulations. Over the past decade, we've approved many transactions involving foreign investment in the country, and that's a good thing. As President Trump's America First investment policy memo notes, welcoming foreign investment will be a key part of America's golden age. Along the way, we considered new questions about the meaning of our rules and regulations, but in many cases, we never codified those decisions. So today we seek comment on writing those down in the CFR. Call it an exercise in good government. But good government also means simplifying outdated rules when possible, and we'll take that opportunity here too. Today then, we propose streamlining many of our review processes. For all their great work on this item before us today, I'd like to thank Chief Boone, Emily Harrison, Ben Arden, Christopher Clark, Hillary DeNigro, and Brendan Holland from the Media Bureau, Tom Sullivan, Denise Coca, Farah Mosenek-Kalur, David Kretsch, Joseph Meyer, and Brenda Villanueva from the Office of International Affairs as well. Thank you all for the great work on the item, and we'll now proceed to a vote. Commissioner Gomez?
Approve.
Commissioner Trusty?
Approve.
The chair votes to approve as well. The item is adopted with editorial privileges as requested. Thank you. Thank you for that. Madam Secretary, please announce the next item on today's agenda.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, item 4 on your agenda is titled Modernizing Internet-Based Telecommunications Relay Services and will be presented by the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. Edward Barthelme, Bureau Chief, will give the introduction.
Thanks. Chief, when you're ready, please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Today, the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau presents for your consideration a notice of proposed rulemaking that proposes to modernize internet-based telecommunications relay services. I would like to thank the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau staff for their hard work on this item. I would also like to thank the Office of Economics and Analytics, the Office of the General Counsel, the Office of the Managing Director, the Office of Communications Business Opportunities, the Enforcement Bureau, and the Wireline Competition Bureau for their review and contributions to the item. Joining me today at the table are Lisa Wilson-Edwards, a Deputy Bureau Chief in CGB's front office, and Michael Scott, a Deputy Chief in the Disability Rights Office. Michael will present the item.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I am pleased to present this draft notice of proposed rulemaking, or NPRM. This item before you would continue our efforts to modernize the Commission's rules governing telecommunication relay services, or TRS. This proposal complements the analog TRS proceeding the Commission began last fall and is part of the agency's holistic first principles approach to ensuring that communications remain accessible. Changes in communication technology continue to reshape the TRS landscape. By this NPRM, the Commission would re-examine existing regulations with the goals of improving service quality, increasing efficiency, and removing unnecessary regulations. The draft NPRM would seek specific enhancements for IP relay and video relay services, or VRS, along with administrative reforms to streamline the TRS program. For IP relay, the NPRM would seek comment on rule changes to facilitate the provision of IP relay using automatic speech recognition for speech-to-text conversion and advanced text-to-speech technologies. The NPRM would also seek comment on promoting the compatibility of IP relay with real-time text technology and the need for metrics for IP relay quality. For VRS, the draft NPRM would seek comment on providing captioning functionality in VRS calls, allowing VRS calls to embassies and consulates by U.S. residents traveling abroad, and adjusting VRS physical call center requirements. For the overall TRS program, the NPRM would seek comment on streamlining the TRS provider certification process to reduce burdens on providers, unifying and streamlining the existing user registration and verification requirements, ensuring uniform application of the rules requiring notice of substantive changes in internet-based TRS offerings, ensuring uniform application of the rules prohibiting the offering of incentives to TRS users, updating or eliminating obsolete rules, and closing outdated dockets. The Bureau recommends adoption of the item and requests editorial privileges for technical and conforming edits. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll now hear comments from the bench, starting with Commissioner Gomez.
At the end of last year, the FCC began looking at ways to modernize the telecommunications relay services. TRS are a type of communication services that allow persons who are deaf, hard of hearing, deafblind, or have speech disabilities to communicate by telephone in a manner that is functionally equivalent to the way persons without such disabilities use telephone service. Over time and with technological progress, telecommunications relay services have also evolved from relying on the analog telephone network to now being available over the internet. The proceeding we adopted last November focuses on modernizing analog TRS. Today, we consider a notice of proposed rulemaking to begin a conversation about modernizing internet-based TRS. As we undertake the task of assessing the impact of new technologies like automated speech recognition and established internet-based telecommunications services like IP relay, IPCTS, and VRS, and as we consider deleting and amending rules that help these services catch up with today's world, we cannot lose sight of our responsibility to prioritize solutions that serve the disability community. Thank you to the chairman for incorporating my edits to the NPRM, including asking about how common carriers can share information about TRS with their subscribers in a modern way, and asking about the benefits of retaining the TRS Advisory Council, which has been a forum where consumers, providers, and state policymakers can provide input on the administration of the TRS fund. I look forward to hearing from the disability community, industry, state decision makers involved in the provision of TRS, and the communications assistant workforce on the proposals that we make today. Thank you also to the Bureau for your strong work on this item. I look forward to seeing the record develop.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Trusty.
Thank you. In November, the Commission initiated a proceeding to ensure that users of analog forms of telecommunications relay services are not left behind as our nation's communications networks transition to IP-based technologies. As I noted at the time, the ultimate goal is to ensure that TRS users can fully benefit from the enhanced capabilities made possible by advanced communications networks. Today's NPRM continues that work with a focus on internet-based forms of TRS. We see comment on how users and providers can take advantage of innovative technologies and expanded service capabilities, including potential for automatic speech recognition and other advanced tools to improve IP relay and video relay service. This item builds on the FCC's prior actions, making ASR capabilities available as an option for providers and users of IP captioned telephone service, another internet-based TRS offering. Consistent with those efforts, the Commission's objective here is to enhance the consumer experience and ensure that internet-based TRS continues to evolve alongside other services in the modern communications marketplace. I thank the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau for your excellent work on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Last year marked the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The FCC plays a critical role in implementing and enforcing the ADA's requirements, including for TRS. Last fall, we kicked off a proceeding to modernize analog TRS. Back then, I said it was time for the agency to take a first principles approach to accessibility to ensure the FCC's rules are aligned with modern technology. The technology advancements that necessitated a fresh look at analog TRS also impact IP-based TRS. So with today's item, we continue the work we started last year by proposing targeted reforms to IP forms of TRS. This is what we're calling TRS Modernization Part 2, and this action supports our broader effort to encourage the IP transition. As we make that transition, we're mindful of consumer protection provisions and necessary updates to them, like those we propose today. Principally, we seek comment on changes to improve the provision of IP relay and video relay service. We also seek comment on streamlining our rules and deleting or updating outdated rules that no longer reflect reality. I look forward to a robust record in this proceeding. For all their great work on the item, I'd like to thank the entire team from Chief Bartholomew, Lisa Wilson Edwards, Michael Scott, William David Wallace, a lot of middle names in this group, Joshua Mendelson from CGB. I'd also like to thank staff from the Office of General Counsel, Office of Economics and Analytics, Office of Managing Director, OCBO, the Wireline Bureau, and Enforcement Bureau for their work. It was a team effort. And with that, we will proceed to a vote on the item. Commissioner Gomez?
Approve.
Commissioner Trusty?
Approve.
The chair votes to approve as well. The item is adopted with editorial privileges as requested. That's a good thing. Yeah, let's just do it. Do it for every item now. And with that, we're coming near the end here. Would any of my colleagues like to make any announcements at this time, starting with Commissioner Gomez?
Yes, please. Thank you. I would like to introduce my spring interns. First, we have Macarena Mac Villa Gomez Tapia. She's not here because she's in Colorado. She's a third year at the University of Colorado School of Law in Boulder. Mac grew up in Denver, Colorado, and attended the University of Colorado Boulder, where she studied international affairs and political science. Mac is a telecom nerd. She is an editor of the Colorado Technology Law Journal and even audited a spectrum management and policy class just for fun. Mac is looking forward to graduating this May and recently decided it was time to finally learn how to swim and is taking swim lessons. My second intern is actually here visiting us today. Ellie, stand up please, Elizabeth Ellie Bailey, a second year at William and Mary School of Law, grew up locally in Arlington, Virginia. She attended Davidson College, where she studied political science and Hispanic studies. Last summer, Ellie worked in La Plata, Argentina, for an NGO that advocates for the humane treatment of prisoners. While there, she was able to learn about a legal system that is extremely different from the United States and worked on her Spanish language skills. Argentina is the 25th country she has visited, and she is focused on visiting 30 by the time she turns 30. Welcome.
Welcome. Commissioner Trusty.
Thanks. I have two announcements. The first is I want to take a moment to introduce our very first intern in the trustee office, Joseph Novacek. So Joseph is, oh, you can stay standing. Thank you very much.
It's part of the ritual.
Yes, sorry. So Joseph is a second-year law student at Catholic University. He has an undergraduate degree in biology and neuroscience from Ursinus College, and before law school, he was involved in medical research. A few fun facts about Joseph: he hails from Baltimore. In his free time, he likes practicing Mandarin. He is working toward visiting all of the national parks, and this weekend, he learned that he should have bought a new shovel. So please join me in welcoming Joseph with our new clapping tradition today, and say hello to him when you see him. Thank you. Okay, now you can be seated. My second announcement, I just want to take a moment to recognize Miss Nellie Fusner, who can also stand. I've had the opportunity to work with Nellie for almost 3 months. She has been covering for Will, who's on paternity leave. She's hit the ground running in our office. She's covered 3 open meetings. She's covered 2 FCC oversight hearings, speeches, fireside chats, and traveled to CES earlier this month. She's been an invaluable addition to our team. We just are so grateful to have had her. She's terrific, and know she will continue to do wonderful things at the agency. So thank you, Nellie, for your contributions.
Thanks to the commissioners and welcome to everybody. That's new. Before we adjourn, a couple of additions on my end here. One, we're excited to announce that Dr. Jonathan Williams has joined the FCC as our chief economist and the head of our Office of Economics and Analytics. Dr. Williams brings an exceptional record of scholarship and leadership from his time at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where he served as professor of economics and director of the Center for Regulatory and Industrial Studies. His work in industrial organization and applied economics, econometrics, I don't even know how to say the name, but it sounds really interesting, along with his experience advising institutions across the policy and academic sectors makes him exceptionally well suited for the role, and will compete with General and Professor Kandub for the privilege of being one of the top professors at the agency. I look forward to relying on Dr. Williams' expertise as we advance the agency's work on behalf of the American people. In the chair's office itself, pleased to share that we have a new intern joining our office this semester, Ryan Fennelly. Ryan, if you're here, you gotta stand up, you gotta go through the whole thing. Ryan's a recent grad of the University of Notre Dame, where he studied classics with a focus on Latin and earned a minor in business administration. After graduating, he spent time working as a substitute teacher right here in Southeast DC, and he assures us that had he still been there, they would have opened up for school at least a day earlier. He would have been out there shoveling all the walkways, clearing it up. Ryan's already been a tremendous help to us at the agency, and we are excited to have him with us this semester. And with that, Madam Secretary, will you please announce the next date for the Commission's monthly agenda? All right, until then, we are adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I had to check the time, but we are definitely before noon. So we're going to be starting the chairman's press conference momentarily. So if you could please take your conversations outside or have a seat, I'd greatly appreciate it. All right. Without further ado, I present Chairman Carr, if you could please just announce your outlet and name, we'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks. Welcome, everybody. The first FCC meeting of 2026. It didn't really strike me until I was actually sitting here at the dais that it had been a little while since we had our last open meeting, so it was great to get the gang back together and start out with a number of really good items. This also marks basically a year since I've had the chance to be the chair of this agency. It has been a heck of a ride over the last year. It's been the most rewarding time in my professional life. We've had a lot of fun, and most importantly, we've gotten a lot of things done. We're following President Trump's lead. We're moving really quickly, and I think we're delivering great results ultimately for the American people. At the outset, I want to also express my thanks and appreciation to the FCC's emergency response team. They were here 24/7, monitoring everything, working to make sure that we were in support of providers, to make sure that our networks stayed up, and if they went down, that we did what we could to help them restore that very quickly. So that was really good to see. Thanks to them for their work. And across the board, we're starting to see really good results. We're already seeing prices for cell phone plans in particular dropping pretty significantly already. We're seeing speeds increase quite dramatically and competition intensifying. And so really look forward to this next year on building on a lot of those wins and continuing to expand our work. So with that, happy to take a break and answer your questions.
Chairman, Matt Daneman, Communications Daily, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm going to do a weasel thing and work in two questions, if I may.
Yeah.
First off, can you discuss where shutdown planning is for the agency and how long you can stay open with current funding? And then my unrelated question, can you discuss the equal opportunity policy that was voiced by the Media Bureau? Specifically, do you anticipate this applying also potentially to political talk radio? The equal opportunity rule applies to both radio and TV, even though the Media Bureau item only talked about TV. Has anyone applied for a declaratory ruling so far that they are a bona fide news outlet? Thanks.
Well, thanks. On shutdown planning in particular, we've gotten to be fairly routine about that. We are making sure we have contingency plans that we're ready to go. My hope and expectation is that it does not get there, but just like we ran through the shutdown plan last time, I think what we would do this time, if it were to unfortunately come to that, would look a lot similar to what we did last time, that we would be able to continue to operate at least to some degree for some period of time, but we're still working through all that and hopefully don't have to pull the ripcord on that plan, but we'll be ready. More broadly on that particular issue, this is something that I've been looking at, that I think the agency has been looking at for quite some time. And one issue that particular public notice focused on was unique to the broadcast TV side, where there had been some broadcast television related decisions by the FCC over the years, and it had appeared that some in industry had misread, overread, or misconstrued those decisions. And so we wanted to be very clear about what the FCC precedents in that particular space stood for. There wasn't a relevant precedent that we saw that was being misconstrued on the radio side, as that wasn't part of anything in that decision. It was focused on the potential misreading of precedents on the broadcast TV side. Of course, as you note, the rule applies to broadcast, radio and TV, but that one was focused on those TV precedents. I'm not aware at this point of getting any petitions for declaratory ruling. I would welcome them to do that. But ultimately, our job here, particularly on the broadcast side, is to apply the law as passed by Congress, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And we're going to do it in an even-handed, fair way.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Kelsey Griffiths with Bloomberg News. The FCC released a report this week that said 3 states allowed tens of thousands of deceased people to receive lifeline benefits over a period of about 5 years. You said California was responsible for over 80% of those incidents, and you got into a bit of a Twitter spat with Gavin Newsom. So I wanted to ask,
I'm usually really constrained on Twitter. I'm surprised if that happened, but
you both tend to be. Is the FCC investigating California particularly or specifically over these incidents? And are there any penalties that the state might face over the improper payouts, particularly over the accounts that were initiated after the participants passed away?
Yeah, we are looking at California, and we're going to make sure that we hold bad actors accountable, and we're going to look at all of the remedies that are on the table. With respect to California in particular, in some respects, this started last year. California passed a law that prohibited certain information sharing with federal agencies. And we looked at that and either prohibited or ran a very serious risk of prohibiting us from being able to ensure appropriate program integrity checks were in place. And so that's why we revoked California's opt-out status. As you noted, there's 3 opt-out states. And then separate from us, the Inspector General had a report that came out, as you noted, this week that looked narrowly at one issue, which was people that were identified as being dead in the Do Not Pay registry that were continuing or newly got benefits in those opt-out states. So it was a report focused on dead people in opt-out states, and it showed, even within those 3 states, a massively disproportionate percentage were in California. And so that's really concerning about the level of controls that California had. I think it just further goes to show why we made the right decision to revoke California's opt-out status. And what's interesting to me is that, Governor Newsom has put out a lot of misinformation since then, including claiming that this was essentially just natural lag between people being on a program, dying, and the account being shut down. But that's not what the Inspector General report found at all. There's tens of thousands of people that were already dead by the time they were first signed up for that program. In terms of natural lag, the lag was in cases in excess of 50 months, and a number of cases, and on average, several months. So that doesn't explain what happens. I saw also there was a tweet, not that I track these things, from the governor's office that suggested that this was somehow going to raise prices on people. And, the governor has his math exactly backwards, that this is paid for by a charge that shows up on your phone bill. And so if those charges are going to pay for dead people's phone and internet service, that's an artificial inflation on your phone service. So by getting rid of dead people and other fraud, that's going to help actually drive down the actual price that you pay every month.
Do you know how many of those people who were signed up for accounts after they passed specifically were done so in California?
We'll take a look. It's the Inspector General report that we're looking at. And
But
also
that
if it breaks it down on the
covered
face or
those
not.
three, right? The 3 states.
Just 3 states, yeah.
Thank you.
But look, plain there's broader work that we need to do, and we're going to do it. And that's part of why we're starting a comprehensive look at the Lifeline program. Lifeline program has been a program that's made a difference for lots and lots of people. And so the goal should be, how do we make sure that it is targeting and reaching the people that Congress intended and not going to waste, fraud, and abuse? I mean, look, we're putting forward a test, and the test is to receive federal benefits, you should be both living and a lawful beneficiary. Some people say we're setting the bar too high. I don't think so. I think that's basically common sense. Yeah.
Hi, Chairman Carter, Chris Cole with Law 360. I just wanted to ask about delete. You had mentioned it. And I'm just wondering, could you give us a sense of when the next tranche is? And then somewhat related, are you working on any consumer protection initiatives that aren't strictly deregulatory?
Sorry, that last piece?
Related to delete, some of it involves consumer protection issues. So I'm wondering if you have anything on your plate that's not related to deregulation in consumer protection.
Well, consumer protection more broadly, there's a lot we're doing. Obviously, our biggest focus there is on robocalls, and as I've sort of talked in a lot of different contexts, we're taking a slightly different approach there. We're not simply looking at a very small number of bad actors that do a lot of bad robocalls and then focusing on multi-million-dollar fines on them that don't really get collected. We're doing an approach, we're looking at every single portion of the life cycle of a call, and we're also building on work that Chairwoman Rosenworcel did in terms of kicking people out of the robocall mitigation database as a remedy, and we've really expanded the work there. So there's a lot we're doing on consumer protection, including some of the items today. With respect to delete, as we talked about, the first tranche is going through effectively the dead wood, and we're going to be moving this year into the additional tranches of more substantive deregulation that may be an individual item, but that may be in sort of their own substantive rulemakings that we do where we get rid of regulation. So we're going to continue to move forward on that one.
Thank you.
Can I also ask 2 unrelated questions?
You can try. You get to decide the question.
Well, on airtime, would this apply to all candidates on the ballot in 2026, including those that are in safe seats, that are polling much higher than than their competitors? And would they have to be on the same show, or can the broadcaster use a different show for airtime? Unrelated question on unlicensed spectrum. You moved on 6 today. What are your plans for CBRS? Do you want to modify it? Do you want to make any changes to it? Do you want to put exclusive spectrum there?
Well, with respect to equal time, the law on this is very clear that you have to be a qualified candidate, and the statute sets forth the bases for that, including doing what's necessary to be on a ballot. There's some interaction with state law, but yes, the question is if you're a candidate or not the odds of you actually winning the election, and so that's going to apply equally across the board. In fact, this is one respect where I really agree with Jimmy Kimmel. Part of what he said was that this rule applies uniquely to broadcast because it's not cable, it's not podcast, it's not other forms of distribution. It's a unique rule as to broadcast. Now, some people have said that because of the rise of cable channels and other distribution means, that doesn't make sense anymore to have unique broadcast rules. And to that I would say a couple things. One, that's ultimately up for Congress to decide. It's not for us to ignore the law. And 2, I think it actually may cut the other way, which is to say, if you don't want to comply with the public interest standard with your programming, now you have so many other ways of getting it out there, whether it's a podcast, a cable channel, a streaming service, that if you want the unique privilege of distributing over this one type of thing, the broadcast TV, then we should really make sure that you're actually complying with the rules of that distribution mechanism. So yes, it's going to apply across the board to any qualified candidate. That's the law that Congress passed. Congress is free to change it. To the extent the FCC has stepped back from enforcing that over the last decade or so, we've made clear that's not going to be our approach. We're going to actually apply the law. With Spectrum, we took a big step forward today on license in the 6 gigahertz band. We've got a really, really full agenda on Spectrum. Probably the biggest focus right now inside the agency is on the upper C-band. That's taking a lot of work here. There's a lot of work taking place across the government, including, as you probably saw, the FAA issuing their own NPRM so that we hopefully can line all this up so we get clarity ahead of the auction on what the new standards are going to be, and we're working in collaboration with them. We have other spectrum bands that we're looking at through the Working Families Tax Cut bill, and we're just going to work through all these spectrum bands. But we took an unlicensed action today. C-band's our big focus going forward, and we'll see what else we get done.
Chairman Card, Dave Shepherdson from Reuters. I want to follow the press and try to sneak in 2 questions as well. On the equal time rule, you said the commission has not presented with any evidence that any of the existing late night or daytime shows interview portions constitute a bona fide news program. Can you talk about sort of the analysis going into it? Do you think, what would meet the bar in your mind that some of these programs would meet the test, would be exempt from the rules? And how much of that, and your colleague, Commissioner Gomez said this was a part of a campaign to censor and control speech. Would you have the same analysis if these shows tended to favor Republicans rather than Democrats in terms of the interviews they chose?
Of course. Our approach here is to apply the law in a fair and even-handed manner. I think we've gone through a period of time at this agency and otherwise. During the Biden years, that wasn't the case at all, but everyone's going to get fair and even-handed treatment. In terms of the factors, the FCC itself has been very clear over the years. That decision walks through the 3 or 4 factors that we've looked at before, including asking whether there's partisan motivation or not. And that's longstanding FCC rules and regulations, and anybody can come forward and file a petition. But the cases that were decided in the past, were really limited to the 4 corners of those decisions. That's how adjudications work. And so the extent that people were taking one adjudication from the way a particular show operated in 2006 and extrapolated from that every single late night, every single daytime show must be bona fide news, that's not right. And Congress was clear that the FCC has a role with respect to bona fide news, because otherwise, I think the statutory history is clear. They were worried that TV programmers would, broadly take advantage of trying to claim they were bona fide news when they weren't. But if you're fake news, you're not going to qualify as the bona fide news exception.
And can I ask you, Verizon had a very serious outage. It lasted about 10 hours. The FCC is investigating. It impacted millions of people. Do you have any sense or any initial determination about what caused this very serious outage? And are there any lessons yet learned that the rest of the industry might take to prevent this from happening again?
Yeah, our team has been in regular touch with Verizon. We've had communications from them about the outage. We are also seeking public input and more, so we'll have more to say. We're in the fact-gathering stage, yes, still. Again, we've had those discussions with Verizon, but at this point, I want to let that process play out a little bit longer.
Mr. Chairman, Wesley Brown with MLEX, a little bit of a two-parter here as well. Just wondering.
See,
if
I was warned. If you start with 1 and it goes to 2, and then they said, don't do it. But I did it.
A little bit related, the two. Just wondering if there's an update regarding the TV ownership cap and kind of where the key points of contention are with possibility of any changes there. And I guess more broadly, what's the agency's view on platforms like YouTube and other streamers when it comes to advertisers, subscribers, in comparison with linear TV? Are they viewed as a competitor or something that's jumped in the space? I know it's been talked about a lot recently over the last few years.
Well, no news to break on the cap proceeding. It's still under review at the agency. We haven't made a final decision on that one. The streaming question is interesting. I mean, obviously, you've got the streamers, which are largely unregulated by the FCC, competing against regulated MVPDs, and it's an interesting thing. You look at YouTube TV and others, and they're taking larger and larger percentages of the market share, but there's very, very few guardrails on their operations as compared to MVPDs. The competition impacts of that, I think, in the main would go through FTC or DOJ, which had a broader remit on streaming rather than the FCC.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. My name is Eric Erbach. I'm with Broadband Breakfast. I also have 2 questions. Just keep that going. So the first question I have for you is about AI regulation and how you feel what the FCC's role in this. I know there's been some discussion around preemption of states' laws. Some have argued that the FCC doesn't really have much of a role in regulating AI, so I wanted to get your take on that. And in an unrelated question, I know some tower companies have asked you to require lease agreements that are fulfilled under the EchoStar Spectrum deal, and I'm just curious how you're thinking about that issue specifically.
Yeah. Well, with respect to the latter, that's an issue that right now that the industry stakeholders are working out amongst themselves. And your first one touched on?
That was about AI regulation and the FCC's role in that.
Yes, there was an executive order on this, and the executive order was, really careful to look to protect what are sort of called the 4 Cs in the executive order, and it calls on the FCC to initiate a proceeding, and we're going to initiate a proceeding at the appropriate time, and we're open-minded as to where that goes and what we do, but again, it would have to be consistent with the letter and the spirit of the executive order, and we'll work through the issues that arise there. Yeah. Okay, thanks, everybody.
I was expecting bigger applause for our Bureau press conference, which is coming up next, so I will hand it over to my colleague, Will Wyquist. Thanks.
Thanks, Katie. So yeah, we're going to do the Bureau press conference, take questions on the items adopted today. I can tell the bureaus and offices that I will expect questions on each of the items. So if OET could come up. So on the first item is 6 gigahertz with Office of Engineering and Technology. Any questions? Matt?
Chief, thank you much. The sort of standard question, from the draft item to the one approved today, were there any substantive changes made to the item? I'm not talking footnotes, but substantive changes.
No problem.
Yeah. There were 2 things. We added a very brief section to the further notice. This was just asking broadly if people would provide comments on any updates they thought that need to be made to the rules, considering that it's been since 2020 since the first unlicensed 6 gigahertz band rules were adopted. And then the other thing we did for the registration requirement, when the geofenced variable power devices contact the geofencing systems and need to register, then make contact, the rules were requiring that they provide their device serial number, and we've made that optional, just because Apple had expressed concerns that there may be user privacy concerns there, because that could be linked to individual people. So those were the only 2 significant changes.
Any other questions on this item? Great. Thank you, guys. Great. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, that was good. So next one is the foreign adversary item with the Wireline Bureau. I think we have a question, right, Matt? Yep. Joseph?
Hey, Matt. Chief Calichon, I love the frames. Again, same question. Any substantive changes from the draft to the approved item?
The only substantive change was a change in how we implement a presumption that a 10% foreign adversary interest confers control on the regulatee. We've implemented procedures relating to how parties can rebut that presumption and defer that or leave that to the delegate, I should say, to the licensing bureaus themselves. I think there was also one edit responding to an ex parte from TP-Link.
Any other questions on this item? Great. Thank you. So the next item is Media Bureau and Office of International Affairs. I think they can come on up. I know we can have one question. I know, no applause on that one. I don't know. Well, the main applaud person was Tom, and he is coming up, so I'll applaud for Aaron, though.
That's good. Emily and Farah up here because there's going to be a lot of questions on this item. I predict.
Chief Boone, I applaud you taking the question. Thank you very much. Again, substantive changes between the two.
No substantive edits, just mostly cleanup edits.
Yeah. Any other questions on this item? No pressure. All right.
All right. Thank you. Yay.
I like this tradition. So last but certainly not least, the CGB TRS item. The team can come up. Something in the air today, I don't know. Matt, want to lead us off?
Chief Bartholomew, same question, but also specifically I'm wondering about the TRS Advisory Council. The Commissioner Gomez had mentioned there had been edits put in there about that. If I'm hearing what she said correctly, it sounds like it sort of reversed what the FCC had been proposing, which is to do away with it. Now it's not proposing that necessarily. Could you?
So I think there were two areas where there were substantive edits. One is the TRS Advisory Council. The second was the public awareness, which the commissioner alluded to as well. For the Advisory Council, there was also an ex parte on that, and the edits are meant to incorporate some of the issues raised in the ex parte and really just ask questions, additional questions about the role that Advisory Council has played to date, and certain things along those lines. So not necessarily reversing anything, but I think it does add some additional questions around that issue. Yeah.
Any other questions on this item? Great, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Great. Well, thanks all. With that, I'll hand it off to Commissioner Gomez. Thank you all very much.
Good morning. Thank you for being here today. As if there was any doubt, the last few weeks have shown that this FCC is no longer independent, and it is no longer primarily interested in acting in the interest of consumers. The FCC is now a political arm of this administration. First, we saw a misguided announcement that meant to once again threaten late night and daytime shows who dare to report the news or speak out against this administration. I have one clear message to the broadcasters that we oversee. Do not be cowed into stopping your independent reporting of what is happening to this country. The guidance issued recently by the FCC was a threat, but it did not change much as far as what are your rights and obligations. It does not change your fundamental First Amendment right to broadcast newsworthy content. But the threats are the point. That's why we cannot give these threats a power they do not have, particularly as this FCC aims to leverage that influence to give billion-dollar media behemoths even more power to negotiate with the large national networks and further consolidate local media in ways that would erase community voices. So we must keep in mind that the primary motivation for this action was to lend a hand to the political operation of this administration, not to help consumers. And I also want to note what the administration is not focusing on, that these rules apply to all broadcasters, television and radio, and they must be applied evenly to the administration's friends and critics alike. Sadly, this wasn't the only deeply political step the FCC took this month. In a likely attempt to tip the scales against perceived political enemies of this administration, the FCC has targeted states like California, which disproportionately have a larger share of participants in the Lifeline program than other states. That means the issues that arise with a larger state are being weaponized and amplified to call for wholesale revisions of this proven and effective legal federal program. Just this week, the FCC introduced a proposal that could very well mean higher phone and internet prices. The FCC could soon adopt cruel and punitive steps that would disqualify eligible households for federal financial support for phone and internet services. How much could eligible families lose under this FCC's proposal? Up to $9.25 a month for most eligible families, which I must add is already not enough, and up to $34.25 per month for families in tribal communities. Millions of families are already struggling with the rising cost of living and the loss of the Affordable Connectivity Program. The FCC should be focused on making connectivity more affordable, not forcing families to pay more to stay connected and to participate in the digital economy. And listen, I get it. It is always worth looking at how we can improve these programs. As we've done in the past, I support targeted reforms that preserve the integrity and the success of the Lifeline program. But this FCC proposal goes far beyond that. It risks turning connectivity into a political tool instead of treating it like the essential service it is. That would be a gut punch to the millions of seniors, people with disabilities, rural residents, and tribal communities that rely on the Lifeline program to stay connected to work, school, healthcare, and emergency services. We still have time to push back against this attempt to hike up phone and internet costs for consumers. So I look forward to more of these discussions. And with that, I'm happy to answer your questions.
Commissioner Gomez, Matt Daneman, Communications Daily. I guess I was wondering if you could elaborate more on the argument of rising costs via the Lifeline move that the administration is taking. The chairman was just arguing it's the opposite because then you'll have less demand on Lifeline pricing because you'll have fewer people and thus the individual costs go down for everybody contributing to Lifeline. But you're arguing the opposite. I guess I'm wondering how we can reconcile these.
These are, well, let's take a step back for a second. What this item is talking about is taking away support from eligible subscribers, not just taking it away from fraudulent uses. And what it's doing is that it's imposing new requirements. It's going to delay benefits for a lot of subscribers, and it's going to lead to a lot of subscribers dropping out because it becomes so complex. That will mean loss of the support for families that need it the most. I hear the argument that if we get rid of some fraud, it may lead to lower contributions on phone bills, but it is so minuscule compared to what the loss of actual subscribers who need this are going to be. And I kind of want to talk about this data that we are seeing that is the purported reason for doing what we're doing. Because I don't think it bears out. I lost my notes. Did I lose one of them? I did all this math all by myself, and I lost my math. So we had an Inspector General report that made a finding that there were people who were deceased on the Lifeline rolls from 2020 to 2025 in the 3 opt-out states. And it found that looking at the death records. So there's this back and forth about, how many of them were dead when they were subscribed, which means they couldn't have been subscribed, and how many of them died after they subscribed to Lifeline. So I think it's important to break down the numbers because we hear $5 million. That's a lot of money. That's over a course of 5 years. But if you break it down, it's what's found is that 17,000 of these 117,000 people who were found to be dead, only 17,000 of them were actually proven to be dead before they enrolled. That is 0.15% of the total of the 11 million subscribers. 117,000 were found to be dead. That is 1%. 39,000, it's not clear. And that's 0.35%. So we are talking about a minuscule number of actual unqualified subscribers that would require either the carriers to return the funds to the government or some other punitive action. It is not a large amount in the grand scheme of things. And what we are doing is using this data to then expand the recommendation beyond the recommendations made by the Office of Inspector General. The Office of Inspector General recommended a few actions. One is, let's run subscribers through a database that shows whether people are alive or dead. That makes a lot of sense. It doesn't say, let's go after every single possible non-American that is being subscribed right now. And why? Because the Inspector General didn't talk at all about undocumented people being part of this fraud that we're seeing being perpetrated against the system. So my response to it is, you're taking away benefits that are going to cost people who need the help the most, and it's going to raise their costs. And it may mean losing service altogether.
Commissioner, I'd like to follow up on Matt's great question. I'm curious whether you know how many of those 17,000 of people who were already deceased and were signed up for Lifeline were in California. I think that's something that wasn't clear to me in the report.
I don't know that breakdown. But I will say this. California, I think the total for them was something like 5%, and Texas was something like 10. I hope I have that data right. 9.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioner Gomez. Chris Colwood, Law 360.
And sorry about that. 5% of California subscribers versus 9% of Texas subscribers. I don't mean to say of the 117 it was 9, because obviously that would not make any sense because.
Right, of the overall numbers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow on something I had asked Chairman Carr. On consumer protection, are there any one or two initiatives that you feel, if you were to pick any, that in your view have gone by the wayside because in the first year the FCC has focused on deregulation?
You know, I have said in the past that I feel like this administration has completely lost its focus on consumers. It seems to be hell-bent on giving corporations everything it wants and deregulating to the maximum extent. I think everything we do should be with consumers in mind, whether it's providing information to consumers so that they know what services they're getting, rather than deleting requirements for informing consumers, whether it's investigating practices by service providers that violate our rules. I think we need to always keep in mind how to serve consumers. There's also, I believe everything we do should be for the benefit of consumers, and we should always think about it that way. It also means supporting pro-competitive policies that inure to the benefit of consumers in the end.
Thanks.
Hi, Diego Munoz, Punchbowl News. So on the equal airtime, you believe that will chill free speech, and correct me if I'm wrong, you indicating you believe that the chairman will not enforce that standard equally and may favor conservative broadcasters? And a follow-up to that is, from his perspective, why should those broadcasting shows like late night and daytime talk shows only, most primarily interview Democratic politicians and not their conservative opponents?
So the equal time rule covers all broadcasters, whether it's television or radio, whether they're friends or foe of this administration. Now, there are exceptions for bona fide news, and the long-standing FCC practice has been to work with the broadcasters to determine whether a particular broadcast meets that definition. It's a complex test that's contextual, and that is why the broadcasters have really relied on having these discussions with the FCC to determine whether it applies. In the end, all the equal access rules do is provide an opportunity for legally qualified candidates to ask for equal time, which doesn't have to be on the exact same broadcast. This is not a huge deal, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, but it's part of a pattern of this administration of constantly berating the broadcasters and the networks for the content of their programs. And that is what leads to the chilling effect, is the cumulative effects of all of these threats, all of these discussions, always about the editorial decisions and the content of these broadcast stations. The fairness doctrine was eliminated under the Reagan administration, and that's the one that kind of required both sides to be presented, and that is a lot more what I am hearing as part of this discussion about the media. But that was eliminated by the Republicans because of the concerns about that they violate the First Amendment right of these broadcasters to make their own editorial judgments and decisions. So in the end, we have the equal time rules. They apply to legally qualified candidates. They are not this broad rule that suddenly affects how these networks make and broadcasters make decisions, and radio stations make decisions about what to put in their broadcasts. So this is just a pressure campaign.
Thanks, Dave Shepherdson from Reuters. So going back to the test that you talked about, and the chairman, I asked him about. So is it your sense that, that the FCC guidance said that they said there was no evidence that any programs on the air now would meet the test? Is part of your concern that then if there's a wholesale reconsideration of whether any of these programs constitute bona fide news programs, that it gives the FCC too much authority to sort of basically interfere in the First Amendment rights of the broadcasters, or what is it? Is this about more than just these specific interviews that are, I guess, covered under the 6 months before the election cycle?
Again, there's no new requirements, no new rules. The threat is the point. Under our rules, the burden is on the candidate seeking equal time to make a request within 7 days and to establish that the rule applies. In practice, though, time is of the essence, and during elections, and broadcasters have long worked closely with the FCC staff to resolve questions quickly. So this idea that there's a industry-wide exception is actually not true in practice, but it's also not true that you're going to be able to have an industry-wide decision in what is really a very contextual matter in determining whether this exception applies. But like I said, broadcasters want the revenues that they get. I didn't say this before, but I'm saying it now. Broadcasters want the revenue they're going to get from political advertising. So they want to meet requests for equal time rules. They want to be able to provide these things. The FCC does not need to threaten them on this, but they're doing it because they want to have more of an effect and influence on the decisions of these networks and what to broadcast.
And can I just follow up? So would your advice to the broadcasters be not to seek these declaratory rulings from the commission as was outlined in that guidance?
The problem with the idea that you're going to file one declaratory ruling and it's going to cover the entire industry or your entire network or one particular program is that it eliminates this fact-specific, case-by-case contextual decision on whether something is subject to the equal time rule. And so I prefer the way that it actually has been done, and it's been done just fine. I don't hear the broadcasters complaining about this, either on any side of the aisle. Instead, what you're hearing is from partisan organizations that complain about certain shows being overly partisan. That is their First Amendment right. And it is that desire to stop anything that is considered partisan by those that don't like it that is the basis of this action. It is not to give equal opportunity to legally qualified candidates, because that process is already in place and it's already being given. Let's talk about the NBC complaint that we still have active at the FCC that was filed not by a legally qualified candidate, because that would have been President Trump, or then candidate President Trump. It was filed by an outside party that was complaining that when NBC had Kamala Harris on Saturday Night Live, that it violated the equal time rule. Well, lo and behold, it turns out NBC had already given the Trump campaign not just a time on the NASCAR, but also on a football game. That met the equal time rule. Why do we still have a complaint open and being investigated by the FCC on this issue? There is no reason. It's pressure.
Commissioner Wesley Brown with MLEX. Similar to what I asked Chairman Carr, obviously, we've seen a lot of stuff change in terms of streamers and other places, starting to try and compete a little bit with linear. The big one, obviously, seeing the Oscars go to YouTube now, and the BBC in the UK willing to work with them as well. How do those shifts in the TV market per se impact the FCC and potential changes to the cap or any rules or anything? How I guess how does the agency kind of balance the fact that it seems they're at least competing a little bit with linear?
Without a doubt, broadcasters of all types are facing competition from multiple technologies, multiple ways. Long gone is the day of 3 or 4 broadcast nations that are sucking up all the advertising revenue. In the end, what it comes down to is how do you define the market when you think about these issues? For me, it's very important that we continue to preserve the localism, competition, and diversity of viewpoints that have been the principles of how we regulate our licensed broadcast networks. And you hear 2 different arguments. One is that broadcasters are special because they have spectrum licenses, and therefore we should be able to regulate them in the public interest, on the one hand. And the second is, but they're subject to all this competition, so we should deregulate them from a consolidation perspective. I think we need to find something that's a little more nuanced than that. For me, and I've said this before, I'm very worried about industry consolidation is going to lead to loss of local journalism and local news, and that's really going to be harming the communities they serve. But I understand that the market has changed and that there's a lot of pressures. So we can't have a one-size-fits-all solution. We need to look market by market because we want to make sure we continue to preserve a vibrant local broadcasting ecosystem.
Hi, Eric Erbach with Broadband Breakfast. Kind of a more granular question here. I wanted to ask about the multilingual emergency alert templates, and I noticed that they were still delayed, and I was wondering if you had any update on the timing of their implementation.
Thank you for that question. I don't. I can't remember where exactly we are. It did get published in the Federal Register. Sorry, I just don't have that right off the top of my head, but we can follow up.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Stay warm.